Good evening to you all. We're getting towards the end of the month. I think it's the 29th of March. And we're going to continue on with the volume 8 of the Shurangama Sutra, the 50 Skandha demonic states. Before we do that, we join palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, we can start. Are we sending our blessings and best wishes to the brother Robert, who had a stroke and is not feeling well. And we wish for his a speedy recovery. Robert was a very unique person that came into this group as fairly a beginner, although he had been practicing for a while, and showed it with sincere practice, the understanding, the true and proper understanding that one can use if they follow the right view. And so I'm hoping he'll stick around for a few more years. He still has some productive time here and things to accomplish. So please send some wishes to him. Okay, we start. What is the purpose of this sutra? It's a very interesting one because of the fact that it's talking about things that mostly aren't talked about. That is super mundane experiences that people can encounter. And oftentimes if they do encounter them, they think that they're at this level very, very high. One of the things that I had in terms of an advantage in coming into Buddhism was because I had practiced Qigong before and was aware of certain skill sets that one could get from the practice. But I was never enamored with those skill sets. And in fact, the fact that I wasn't enamored with them led me to Buddhism. And the reason is that when I work with these types of skills, I kept thinking, but what is the purpose of all this? So I would often ask people I would run into masters all the time. I mean, literally, maybe for a while, it was like once a week that were coming out of China. And they would say, oh, you know, if they came to LA, that you should go and talk to Gilbert if you haven't met him. And they would come and I would ask them, why do you practice? And they go, what? I said, why do you practice? What is the purpose of practicing? That really ate me because I know that I could keep gathering all these different kinds of skills, but it really didn't lead me anywhere. And it wasn't until I heard Master Sheng lecture, and he lectured so simple, that I realized what I was missing. I didn't even know what I was missing. I just knew there was something there that I wasn't concentrating on. And what it was wisdom. And here the Shurangama Sutra is using wisdom and say, don't be so enamored with these. Don't worry about these skill sets. Leave them be. Just keep practicing. And this idea of practicing with a beginner's mind is very, very important. You never lose that beginner's mind. Never, never, never. If you start thinking that you're at a certain level, then you've really messed everything up. It doesn't matter whether you've gotten a super mundane power or not. If you think that your practice is very elevated, the practice is one that it is something that the more you practice, the more you realize that there's a substantial more that you need to do. And this is in this sutra, the 8th volume, it's talking about this and saying, oh, if you think you have this, forget about it. The demons are going to come and take you to hell. Literally, that's what they're telling you. And not only that, but I've seen people who have attached to these skill sets and messed up their practice completely. And when that happens, it's very pitiable, because in order to get these kinds of skills, one would have had to have practiced very diligently and very sincerely. But somewhere along the line, something got switched, and the emphasis went from the idea of the practice and the interest in looking into mind to what can mind do? What can it do for me? And oftentimes you'll see this with people who are monastics or someone else that has the ability to see into the future. But a lot of these are low-level skills. They seem fantastical to us when we read about them, but they're still low level. And you understand that, and you just keep going. To me, it helped me, because coming into Chan, I went, I've done that. But there's still something more important. I want to follow this vein of wisdom. I want to see where that takes me. So I use this single-minded purpose to practice. And this is what the exhortation is from the Shurangama Sutra here, is for you to practice. Forget about all the scenery that you're seeing along the way. Just keep practicing. Yeah, it's an indication there's something going on, and that there's a good practice going on, as long as you don't hold on to it. So it's a very tricky thing, and you just have to pass it by. I often equate that to someone who is on a train, and they get to a station, and the town that they get to looks so beautiful, so wonderful, a beautiful station with a lot of lights and love, and you want to get off. But as long as you're there, as long as you have a method, a sense of self, you stay on the train, and you go to the next one, and maybe that one is full of rainbows, and you go, no, I still, this is ignorance. I have to stay on. There's still something there. There's still the perception and duality, and you keep going. And so you go, you don't have to go with blinders on as you're going. You're aware of that, just as you're aware of whatever's happening in this very moment. You're aware of it, but you let it go. And when you let it go, you just continue with the practice. You continue with the elements of the practice of awareness, concentration, that you're contemplating the method, so that you can get into the proper samadhi. You're in the present moment. Your body's relaxed, your mind's relaxed. The practice is continuous, and you stay in this way. So don't worry about what's happening with the scenery. One can be aware of that, but one does not cling to it. So let's continue on. And it begins further when the person's mind becomes clear, unveiled, bright, penetrating. An internal light will shine forth and turn everything in the 10 directions into the color of the Jambu River gold. So the Jambu River was noted for its gold. And so they're equating it to this, where everything is like a golden color. Not bad, huh? Many people reaching this place, they'll either think that it's Disneyland, where you go to deposit your gold, or it's some kind of state of illumination, of enlightenment, because they've never seen that before. It's very incredible. So you look around and you go, I must be here, because everything is this way. Even if you don't know what Jambu River gold is, everything is glowing like a gold. We continue. All the various species of beings will be transformed into Tathagatas. So everything is going to be transformed into Buddhas. Not bad. Suddenly he will see Virachana Buddha. Now it's like you're here and you're at the top of the baseball bat, and then it's capped by Virachana is there. The primordial Buddha is present. And you're just going, wow, this is very, very incredible. Seated upon a platform of celestial light, surrounded by 1,000 Buddhas who simultaneously appear upon lotus blossoms in 100 million lands. This state is called the mind and the soul being instilled with spiritual awareness. Now let's see a show of hands of how many of you have gotten to this level. Cynthia, you can tell me if anybody put a hand up. No, not yet. Maybe tomorrow. Just keep practicing. All right. When he has investigated to the point of clarity, the light of his mind will shine upon all worlds. This is a temporary state and does not indicate sagehood. It does not, if he does not think that he has become a sage, then this will be a good state. But if he considers himself a sage, he will then be vulnerable to the demon's influence. And again, here, when we're talking about a demon, we're talking about mind itself and the corruption of mind through the obscuration of not seeing clearly. Because even if we're there and we're experiencing that, it's still a samsaric occurrence. It's still something. There's still something that we're grasping at here. And so we have to let it go. And then as you just bid it fond adieu and just stay on the train, it stops there and then it starts moving again. It's a temporary mental state. But these states are very, very powerful. They will be a state that you will feel very much touched by it. And so it's difficult to forget it. It's like saying, wow, this is the best place I've ever been. And so you want to stay there. You want to bathe in this wonderful light, but don't do that. Now, I bring up this also because not a week passes as much as sometimes a day that I don't have something from one of you that talks about the wonderful mental state that you got into. And you want me to put the stamp of approval on it. I would ask you this: withhold any comments like that in the future until you get to the Jambu River goal state. And if you got there, then talk to me about it. Okay. If not, just hold it, stay on the train and keep going. Okay. Because if you haven't got to the Jambu River goal, then, you're still a beginner. I'm a beginner, but you still keep on that train. Okay. Further, as a person uses his or her mind to intently investigate that wondrous light, he will contemplate without pause, restraining and subduing his mind so that it does not go to extremes. Now, what I want to point out here, and I don't know how many of you have the sutra before you, but I want you to tell me something about this first sentence. Tell me something, look at it, and whatever comes to mind, tell me. Nobody?
Silent illumination.
Silent illumination? Okay. Anybody else? Watch this. This is how we don't read the sutras the way it is or listen to them. I know most of you don't have the sutra in front of you, but let me read it again and then I'll ask the question again. It's not important that we get to the end of the book. What's important is the practice. As a person uses his mind to intently investigate that wondrous light. He will contemplate without pause, restraining and subduing his mind so it does not go to the extremes. What is being taught here? What is the significance of this? Anybody now?
Elements of a proper practice.
Pretty much. It's telling you that what I'm telling you, instructing you in the elements, they're right here in the sutra. Maybe not all of them, but the important aspects of it when you're using your mind. You're not using your consciousness here. You are using your mind because you're contemplating. Consciousness cannot contemplate. Contemplation is the province of mind itself. Consciousness can only scheme and think and create some duality there, where contemplation is just simply mind looking at mind. So, and it says without pause, right? So if you're going to do this, you're going to contemplate without pause. And this is how you restrain and subdue the mind. Like Fayan said, you don't restrain it by force. You need not give it a name. You just simply practice continuously. What is the practice? Investigating via contemplation. So this should give you faith in what I'm telling you as to how to practice properly. If you practice in this way, I don't know if you're going to get Jambu gold or not, but you may come up with, get a silver or a bronze, but keep trying. So then it says, suddenly the space in the 10 directions may take on the colors of the 7 precious things, or the colors of 100 precious things, which simultaneously pervade everywhere without hindering one another. The blues, yellows, reds, whites, each will be clearly apparent without the use of drugs. This state is called excessively subduing the mind. So it's like you're subduing the mind, but you're in this kind of a state of bliss because you're looking at all of these colors. You know, it's not just a red color now. You got the rainbow colors, everything there. Wow, that's something. But you're investigating, and you got to ratchet back a little bit of the effort that you're taking. Pull it back a little bit and get into that very sublime state that's there. So you're not seeking for something when you're practicing. When you still have this vestige of seeking, this kind of a tiny feeling of seeking, you create the duality and the mind produces it. Everything is created by the mind. So it will produce this and you go, wow, I've got Jambu River gold. That's something. And so that's more valuable than 100 Bitcoins. You know, it's something, but if you hold on to it, you mess everything up because you're stuck there in the state of duality. I see this. It is a temporary state that does not indicate sagehood. But if you do not think that you become a sage, then this is a good state. If you consider yourself a state, then then you end up vulnerable to the demon's influence. Got you again. Further, as a person uses his mind to investigate with clear discernment, now pay attention, you see it's coming back again, until the pure light no longer disperses, he will suddenly be able to see various things that appear in a dark room at night, just as if it were daytime, while the objects that were already in the room do not disappear. Very interesting. How many of you, and this is, I'm not saying you got to this state, but how many of you are able to navigate at night without lights on? Anybody put their hand up? Yeah. Okay. We're going to, next retreat, we're going to give you a test and see how far you can go. But yeah, you feel like a sonar, and you can walk in a room and you walk all around, and you just trust. You trust that there's something kind of inside of you that you're able to do this. Again, it's not something very high level, but it's still not bad. I mean, if you have that, it saves you from stubbing your toe on something on the floor. And don't stub your toe and say that was your sonar. But not bad. And it continues. This state is called refining the mind and purifying the vision until one is able to see in the dark. It's a temporary state, doesn't indicate sagehood, and it's a good state. But if you cling to it, you'll be vulnerable to a demon's influence. But this kind of a state is a very interesting one because it's more than just seeing in the dark. It is perceiving what is coming in a room, what is going out, what has come in to a room. If your mind is very, very quiet, you can perceive when an entity has entered your room. You know whether it's a good entity or a bad entity. You can feel something and what they're looking for, what they want. Doesn't mean that that's a very high level state, but the mind is capable of this kind of a perception because you're not using consciousness. You're using the mind's own perception, and it has tentacles all over that can feel. And it doesn't have to feel with the eyes. It feels with the senses of the mind's own perception. And it can feel things coming in, which is a pretty good thing sometimes, because there's times when some entity or something will come in that is not a very wholesome entity. So you would know and be aware of that. Maybe you're not vulnerable to it, but there might be a family member or somebody that could be vulnerable to this kind of an entity. And they do come and they vex people quite a bit. I'm not going to get into too many ghost stories, but they happen a lot. Once my son had one of his friends come over, and his friend, as my son is they're engineers, so you have to see it, feel it, measure it for it to be real. Well, this engineer ran into some malevolent spirit that came right into his dream. And he had this dream, and he asked the spirit, and he could see the spirit right at his bedside, and says, "What do you want?" Said, "Oh, I've come from a long time ago." And they go, "Well, for what?" And it said, "Ask your father." And he had fallen over on the bed, in between the wall and the bed, and couldn't get out. Well, lo and behold, he asked his father, and the same thing had happened to his father a long time ago. Not only did it vex him, but it vexed his entire family. They had dreams. Not only they had dreams, they had scratches on them. And then the next day when he was going somewhere, he put in the navigation where he was going, and his car took him right to a funeral home, not anywhere close to where he was supposed to go. Very strange when you start thinking about this and you start looking at it in a way and say, did this really happen, or is this like a coincidence or whatever? You can, be the judge of that yourself. There were so many of these that were there, but through the use of mantras, I was able to help him and break that spell. And it really worried me because the next day he was getting on a plane to fly to Chicago. And so it's very scary, but he believed. There was no doubt about it. There was nothing that he would say that it did not happen in that way. But you can sense these things. You don't go and play with them. You don't try to fight with them. Master Shenhua did that, as I mentioned, and it almost killed him. But you try to understand and feel this. Does that mean that somebody is enlightened because they see this? No. It's just something that let's say, an extra special skill, but it doesn't indicate a very high level of practice. It's just there. And this is the way Master Shenhua was talking in his commentary, in the same way as I'm talking to you now. Taking out, because sometimes I say, oh no, you cannot talk about these things. Don't talk. Well, then why is the Shurangama Sutra talking about it? Because it's beneficial for us to understand the rules of engagement, the rules of samsara, the illusion of all of those things. It's important for us to do that. So what Master Shenhua was saying was that the people's Buddha eye opened for a little bit of time, and then it temporarily closes. As it mentioned in the sutra, it's a temporary state. It probably is not really the Buddha eye in any case. There's different eyes that we have: our regular eye, enhanced eye, like with a microscope or a telescope. And we have the third eye that is here. And actually, most of the time it's in this way, like on its side, that enables people to see things. And we have the wisdom eye, the Dharma eye, and the Buddha eye. So it didn't have to get all the way up there for a person to sense some kind of an entity coming in or out of the house. Okay, we continue on. Further, when his mind completely merges with emptiness, his four limbs will suddenly become like grass or wood, devoid of sensation, even when burned or by fire or cut with a knife. The burning of the fire will not make his limbs hot, and even when his flesh is cut, it will be like wood being whittled. This state is called the merging of external states and the blending of four elements into a uniform substance. You don't have to be a high-level practicing Buddha to do that. I've literally seen Kung Fu masters put a very sharp sword right here and have the sword completely bent, a very thick sword, completely bent without it being penetrating the body or being hit, which is called iron shirt practice. Nothing special about that. You just have to put the time in. This kind that they're mentioning here is a little bit higher up than that. It is something that one is at a realization so great that they're separated from the idea of the body. There's a very famous story about this, in which in the old days, there was this king, and he decided to go out on a spring day and to take all of his concubines out for a day in the forest. And as he was there and they had lunch and then he had a bit of wine, then he fell asleep. But the concubines had heard that there was this very famous monk that was in the forest, and they sought him out. And they sat down in front of him, and he gave them the Dharma, talked to him about the Dharma. And in that moment, the king awoke and found that none of his concubines were close to him. So when he inquired with the guards said, oh, they're listening to the Dharma from this master. So he was quite perturbed and stopped the lecture and said, who are you to take my concubines away? And he was saying, I'm just simply presenting the Dharma to them. And he said, no, you took them away from me. And they said, but his Dharma is very good. And they said, oh, his Dharma is very good, huh? And so he had his guards spread them out like this on a tree. And and then instructed the guard to cut off one of his arms, which he did. And he said, "And where is the Dharma now?" And the master said, "Not in that arm." And he did that again to his other arm, and the master said, "Not in that arm," all the way until he completely cut off his legs. The king then realized what he had done and the response of the monk. And it was this ability of this monk on a higher state, that's not a temporary state, for him to be able to do that and not succumb to the fear and the suffering. Of course, he would succumb, but not in the way that we would think, because he was already beyond the pain and suffering and birth and death of a sentient being. These kinds of stories are, especially to beginning practitioners, are not easy to fathom or understand. But nevertheless, there's something kind of give you an example of someone at that level, not in a temporary state, but in a permanent state, that was capable of doing this. We continue. Further, when his mind accomplishes such purity that his skill in purifying the mind has reached its ultimate, he will suddenly see the earth, the mountains, the rivers in the 10 direction turn into the Buddha lands, replete with 7 precious things, their light shining everywhere. He will also see the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, as many as the sands of the Ganges, filling all of space. He will also see pavilions and palaces that are resplendent and beautiful. He will see the horrors of hell below and the celestial palaces above all without obstruction. This state is called the gradual transformation of concentrated thoughts, of fondness and loathing. It does not indicate sagehood. And again, if he considers himself a sage, he's under a demon's influence. But again, this seems like it's a very great accomplishment. But all it is just simply removing the blinders to see what was there already. But even when we see things like that, they're still illusions. They're not real. Why are they illusion and not real? Because the mind is attaching to this feeling of being in a celestial or a Buddha land, even beyond celestial into the Buddha lands, and looking down into the hell realm and going, wow, I'm glad I didn't end up there. Still a duality, still a choice, still picking. And so it's very, very subtle, but nevertheless, there's still the sense of self to have this kind of a perception there. It's pretty incredible, but it's not all that fantastic. When I was doing the Qigong, when I actually taught, I would take people to different places, not to the Buddha lands, but to somewhere else, I'll just say. And most of them could go with me, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean that they were at a certain level, only that they were calm enough to be able to go with me. Some of them who weren't calm could not go. But it doesn't mean that I had power or they had power. These things are just, they are what they are. But if I thought myself to be somebody with great skill or power, then that would be the end of me. And is exactly why instead I chose to practice the Buddha Dharma. I just didn't know really the extent, the wondrous function of the mind that's there, that's beyond all of this stuff here. Okay. So Master Shen Hua was talking about this, and he said this is called the gradual transformation of concentrated thoughts of fondness and loathing. And he said, why is he able to see these things? It's because he ordinarily has likes and dislikes. He would like to go to the heavens and the Buddha lands, and he would detest going to hells. He concentrates on such thoughts, being as attentive as a hen sitting on her eggs, or as a cat waiting for a mouse, or as a dragon nurturing his pearl. It does not think about lands or anything else, but only about how fine the Buddha lands are and how much suffering there is in hell. His mind favors happy places and loathes the places of suffering and misery. Eventually, his concentrated thoughts create these states. Today, there was one participant in one of my forums that was writing about how he was doing and how he was very content in the sitting, and it was kind of a wonderful place where he was at. But I still shook him a little bit because there was still self there, and although he was able to subdue the mind and quiet the mind and have it into the special kind of a place, it's just a holding tank. It doesn't go further, and it doesn't generate wisdom. If it generated wisdom, some of the words that he used and his opinions would not have been expressed, because they indicated there was still holding on to the self. So I hope that person will understand this and practice, because he said of all the people, he's practiced with this master and this master and this master, and that none of them really reached the level that, or what they didn't, how would you say it? I don't want to put him in a bad light, but he didn't get as much out of it as his own practice. And maybe he was inarticulate in the manner in which he was expressing it, but it seemed as though it was, okay, I've got this. And it's better for us not to think in that way and just keep practicing. Further, as a person uses his mind to investigate what is profound and far away, he will suddenly be able to see distant places in the middle of the night. He will see the city markets and the community, wells, streets, alleys, and relatives and friends, and he may hear their conversations. This state is called having been suppressed to the utmost. The mind flies out and sees much of what had been blocked from view. Has anybody had this experience? You raise your hand. Jane did. And who else?
I read a story of Master Hsuan, and that is talking about this.
So who is talking right now?
Could you raise your hand? That way your picture would bubble up.
Oh, is this Mei Li?
Yeah, Gilbert. I think I read Master Hsuan's story about his experience and exactly what is described here.
Okay. So he was talking about it, but you did not experience it. Okay, no problem. That's fine. What did Shifu say about it? Mei Li?
What Shifu said about it?
Yes.
I don't remember. I heard him saying about this one. This is the story I read from his experience.
Okay.
From Master Hsuan.
Okay. And then there was also Jane that raised her hand, so you can unmute yourself.
About a year ago, I went to a 90-day 6 weeks, 42 days meditation. That's Huatou meditation. And during one of the meditation, that was early morning, and I clearly hear the master, that was the Guoxin Bashi. I clearly hear his recite his Huatou, when I know was empty, that kind of thing in Chinese. It was his voice, and it was so loud, and so I thought maybe he essentially speak out during the meditation. So it was so loud, I can't believe. So I opened my eyes, and there's no one has any reaction. It was so quiet. It's, it was just in my voice. I clearly hear what he said. So during that, and then after that, and he was giving his Dharma talk, and I told him that this morning I heard your Huatou during the meditation, and I told him that what is this Huatou is. So it was quite amazing. I just started my meditation not long ago. I mean, it's 3-4 years, but I have a lot of very weird thing happened. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, what did Guoxin Bashi tell you?
He told me that is one mind. It was told me that's one mind. So you hear that voice, and that's what like 100 people there, and it was so loud. I couldn't believe that no one hear what he said. But it's very strange feeling. Yeah.
You're lucky because it was Guoxin Bashi, because some masters would probably not be happy to hear that. But Guoxin Bashi was somebody who could understand that, and with his wisdom, compassion, was that way, and that was an illustration of his wisdom and compassion. Has nothing to do with the self, but has to do with a demonstration of the Dharma. And because of your practice and your past practice, you were able to hear that. It is like a sign for you, but you don't hold on to it, okay? So
I will not.
So you don't hold on to that. You just understand it. You use it to show that this world is not completely as clear or what it looks like as that. The other things of going and doing things, they're still mundane, actually, where you go out and do things. And actually, when I was in Qigong, I used to teach people how to do that. I remember once telling somebody about that and taking them to Taiwan to see a person that was there. And later on, that person called up the friend in Taiwan and said, I saw you. And she goes, well, what was I wearing? She said, you were wearing this and this and this, and this is what you were doing. And the friend got very upset with her and says, don't come back again. So it was kind of a frightening thing for the friend to be visited by somebody, but it showed that it can happen. It's, again, nothing special, but those things are that way. But sometimes you can use things like that to help people. So you don't become a fortune teller, but there's times maybe you might be able to save something by helping the people or letting them know something that's far away, or conversations or something. Sometimes it's beneficial, but we don't cling to that. Otherwise, we will tend to manipulate the environment. We do not want to manipulate the environment. We want to influence the environment in a proper way, but we don't try to manipulate it. This is the difference again with Qigong and Chan Buddhism, is that there's a higher ethics and morality there in terms of what we do. And to me, I don't engage in those kinds of practices anymore. I don't have a need for those kinds of practices. But it's kind of interesting. But if you run into enough people here, sometimes the people say, I didn't want to say, but this and this happened to me. Sue is one like this. Sue is always, she's always has the stuff, and then she wants to share it with me. I said, why didn't you say it in the class? And she said, I don't want to say anything. But yes.
Sue, were you there? during the meditation, that 10, you were there, right? You remember I said that?
Yes, I was there. The same retreat, a 90 days retreat. Yes, I remember you.
Yeah, before the
Yeah.
90-day retreat, I only have 10 days retreat experience. So they took, I never had any meditation. My first meditation was 10 days and then jumped to 90 days.
That was great. I mean, you did it. That's
was great.
101 times, no more 90 days.
No,
Oh, Sue.
42 days.
Sue, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why didn't you hear
Well, I don't know.
it? Put her on the spot. You should have heard it. It was very, very loud, So
If
I-
Ian,
I'll let you guys in on a secret. Some of you know this, but in a retreat, if someone is very, very quiet and practice, when they walk behind people that are sitting in meditation, you can feel their thoughts. You can feel their emotions and whether their thoughts are calm or whether they're scattered or whatever it is. It's very interesting. No, because the mind is just mind, just like Jane said that, Sheng said, just this mind. And so there's that way that you can sense things from people. It's nothing special. It's just all the information's there. It's just like all the radio waves that are in the sky at any given moment. We just don't have the receivers to pick them up. But as you practice, you develop those kinds of receivers. Not important to the practice in terms of what's going on, as long as you put it down. Okay, we'll continue on.
But Gilbert, I want to say that because of that experience, you would know, you have more faith that all return to one. Everything is one.
Yeah, and I always
Right.
say, where did the one return to? So the thing is
Still
yes,
one.
I know what you're saying, Sue, and essentially it does. I mean, things like that can make a difference. They can change somebody, because when we get to that and when we see it, what happens is that you see something that was out of the ordinary, and it gives you faith. It gives you faith that you're on the right track and you're practicing, and you see that as long as you don't cling to it, then you understand, how could this possibly be in this way? And it can really make a difference. So sometimes those kinds of appearances come in accordance with causes and conditions. Sometimes they're a wake-up call in this lifetime to practice or to practice harder. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. So I'm sure a lot of you have these kinds of situations, but you don't want to talk about them, but that's okay.
Gilbert, one thing I'd like to say is that the teachings about Meiji from the Thai nun from I don't know, several months ago, where she had, I don't think it's in the book. I don't think we went over that in the class, but she had a lot of experiences like this. And her teacher had to tell her to just put them down, because she was just, she was actually helping out beings that came to her in these experiences. She was actually helping. However, she had to leave it behind to penetrate further, because she was caught up in this layer. So it's, instead of worldly chit chat, she was really engaged in the supernatural chit chat, and it's still chit chat. So still something to penetrate, to go beyond.
And I see Ruth Marie and Vijay, and his wife just turned into a dog. Where did you? Oh, there she is. Oh, sorry, I'm a little levity. It is true. It is true. People can do that. I've met many people like this. I met one person that was had the common sense and good sense that she was very good at telling people things about their lives and stuff. But she went into the to become a nun, and that's I don't know what happened to her after that, but that probably saved her, because otherwise she would become some kind of a high established oracle. And some of these oracles are very, very powerful. But it isn't necessarily the goal of what we do. And so if we indulge in those kinds of experiences, it's no good for our practice. We have to look here. We have to look at this and try to understand self so we can get rid of self. And what the Shurangama Sutra here is doing is trying to look at these layers that look like enlightenment and saying, leave them alone, just keep going. This is because imagine if one was had complete enlightenment. Well, first of all, there wouldn't be a one, there wouldn't be anything, it would just be Buddha. But the powers that would be possessed by that would be great. But it's not a power that can completely change the environment. If that was the way it would be, then Buddha could be considered to be a god that could change everything at any moment and say, hey, I really feel sorry for all of this. But the Buddha mind is looking at it and understanding how it works through Pratika Samappada. And it says, this is the way it is. This is the thusness of things. It doesn't say, oh, please, heal me or do this or whatever. No. And if what? If the Buddha went, okay, you're healed and you're healed and you're healed. And then what about the other trillions and trillions of people, sentient beings, wherever? It wouldn't work in that way. If the Buddha had this omnipotent power of doing everything with one wave of its hand, everybody would be cured. None of us would be here anymore. It's interesting because we have to look at mind in the right way, not attached to superpowers or give the Buddha superpowers. It is different. We're talking about something that isn't an entity. And so if we subscribe to this realization, we have to separate out all of these entity type thinking. This is what the Shurangama Sutra is talking about. It's very profound, very subtle. It has nothing to do with these super mundane powers. It has to do with going, if this isn't it, then what is the Buddha? What is that? How is that? And we begin to not try to categorize it, or as in the Diamond Sutra say, that to be known by its 32 marks. It cannot be known in that way. And likewise, it's saying here, just like the Diamond Sutra, it cannot be known by these super mundane powers. There's still child's play in terms of the Buddha's perception. Can the Buddha do things? Yeah, of course. But the thing is, it still has to follow and harmonize with mind itself. Very interesting. You have to contemplate that. And you're flipping this coin both ways. Mind looking at the Dharmakaya, the mind ground. The mind ground looking at the mind. Why couldn't it? It's mind. Why couldn't it look back? And as it looks this way, then it absorbs all the notions of self. It just comes together like a clamshell. Click, it absorbs. And then what is looking at what? It's just a perception of mind, but it is non-dual. If I rub my finger on my arm, the entire body is aware of that. It's not just this one spot, but the body has this awareness. Likewise, whatever happens in your mind has an awareness throughout mind. But we cannot know that. The Buddha mind, because the Buddha mind is just, you're part of this, would know that. Okay, hold on. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, we will stop there. And I'll try to decide whether we'll go forward some more or not. I've been using this sutra to present the Dharma, probably in a way that other people that would explain this would not have, simply because I'm looking at it as the elements of the practice and saying, why was this written? Not all these different states and trying to memorize them or to know them or to attain them or whatever. That's not important. What's more important is the investigation, the cultivation of mind. And when we see that's the essence of our practice, is this discernment, this proper discernment of what is arising in mind. That comes through contemplation, not through thinking. Okay, so we'll stop there. I probably have a few of you with your head spinning around, but that's okay. It's okay. And we'll go from there. Okay, next questions time.
So,
can you finish at number 10?
I'm sorry?
Can you finish at number 10?
Number 10.
there's only one more, Gilbert.
Oh, before the form one, you mean?
Yeah,
Before the sensation one?
right.
The 10 states. Okay, no problem. We're going to go into overtime then.
Is that okay? So
No, it's okay. That's fine. It says, further, as a person uses his mind to investigate wait, I read that one, right? The utmost point? Yeah, I was over here. Because that was the part we were talking about that,
This one also begins the same way.
yeah.
The number 10 also begins the same way.
Well, let me jump to the part. Are you sure I didn't read that one?
The previous one also started the same way, I think.
Okay, further, as a person uses his mind to investigate the utmost point, he may see a good and wise advisor whose body undergoes changes. Within a brief interval, various transformations will occur, which cannot be explained. This state is called having an improper mind, which is possessed by the Lee ghost or May ghost or celestial demon. And without reason, speaking Dharma that fathoms wondrous truths, does not indicate sagehood. If he does not think he has become a sage, then these demonic formations will subside. And it's very interesting because here, this is not a bad thing where if one is listening to the Dharma, the big thing is if one becomes enamored or loves that, then you can that too, you can cling to and becomes a demonic force because they're saying, well, when I was talking to the Buddha last night, the Buddha told me such and such. But it's possible, and some of the earlier ones, that one can actually listen to the Dharma in their sleep, or listen to it from somewhere else. This is something that happens. But if one thinks, oh, I've got a direct line to the Buddha because of it, then it doesn't work that way. All it is that from past practice, from all that you've read, when the mind is down, when the self is down, all of this Dharma will flow. It will flow in a very natural way, unobstructed, and it will be presented to you because you've already been consuming it, but you ate it so fast that you didn't really get the sense of the flavor of it. So now at nighttime, it can come to you. As long as you don't think that this is something special, then it's okay. It's something that you can actually wake up and write it all down. And it helps you and it helps people. And if it's done in the right way, in that moment, sometimes I'll do that and the people will asked that very question in the morning. And I'm just waiting for that question to come up at 6 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And I'll just hear my phone go ding, and there it is. So it's kind of interesting. These are not ones that the ones they're talking about here is the Lee and the May ghost and stuff like that. But it is only if one begins to try to converse with these things and think that one has a special skill. If you don't have that special skill, it's okay. But you have to be careful, because you have to understand from where this is coming from. This is still from the samsaric side. And so you can't use it to elevate yourself to say, oh, I'm at this level or that level. It doesn't work that way. And then if one sees an advisor and starts seeing that's something, where there's a transformation of whatever the advisor is. I've never seen anything like that. I've always wondered, until I read the 50s Skandha demons, where this comes from. And then Master Sheng explained that this is from one's own self-practice. And as long as you let go of it, it's fine. If you cling to it, then you get into a world of trouble with this all. So it continues, and it says, Ananda, these 10 states may occur in dhyana as one's mental effort interacts with the form skandha. Dull and confused living beings do not evaluate themselves. Encountering such situations in their confusion, they fail to recognize them and say that they become sages, thereby uttering a great lie. They will fall into relentless hells. Do not follow anybody that says they're a sage. If I say that, then, beat me over the head with a bat or expose me or whatever, because I've already gone to the dark side if that happens. Okay. I really try very hard to be honest and sincere in my practice and ward off these kinds of things. Skills, it's not bragging about them. These things happen, but it's not important. It never was. If it was important, I would have still been practicing Qigong. But that was not for me. Wisdom is more important. And what I've tried to extract from this volume 8 is the wisdom that's set forth there. And if you follow that, then you won't be led astray. I think, did I finish it or not? Hold on. Because if not, I'll be haunted by Sue because I didn't finish it. So it says, in the Dharma ending age, after the Tathagata enters nirvana, all of you should rely on and proclaim this teaching. Do not let demons of the heavens have their way. Offer protection so that all can realize the unsurpassed way. There's what's called, I think you say Mo Fa, which is the Dharma ending age, right? In Chinese. Did I say it right? No, probably not. They don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, it's for you to understand Chinese, it's Mo Fa, the Dharma ending age. And so there's different versions. I wouldn't even want to go to the Sanskrit. Jin Senta will roll her eyes. I think it's Visita Karitra. But in this Dharma ending age, the Shurangama Sutra is supposed to be the first one that disappears. So we have to keep going, keep it spinning, present it to other people so that it stays in the world. This is a very valuable sutra, very extremely valuable sutra. So we want to do that. Sometimes I even heard people who are teachers that poo-poo studying the Shurangama Sutra, and I think that's pitiable because it's such a powerful sutra that it has to be protected. And so I'm charging each of you with the protection of the Shurangama Sutra, so to present it to the next generation. Okay, second ending, back to the questions. We've got time if you have a question.
Yun, go ahead.
Hi, Gilbert. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
So we're talking about the phenomena that we observe during the meditation. I guess what's more important is were we aware from those phenomena, right? But when I thinking of this awareness, it's not really we realize anything, but we directly see it, right? And the reason that we could directly see it is because sort of the experience, what we can observe, meet what we learned from the theories. Is my understanding correct?
You're getting there. And the, you know, I don't want to be too critical, because what you're doing is you're moving the mind work with what you're saying, and you're looking at it in an analytical eye, but you have one foot in the perception of mind and one foot in the perception of samsara. And that happens, but it's better than not having a foot into the perception of mind. In the perception of mind, then there is actually no viewpoint, because there's no duality. Mind is just aware, and it's aware all the time of everything, past, present, future. It's a different, I can't say it's an entity. It's not a thing. It's not a way of thinking. It's not a mental state. We contemplate so we can engage in the realization that it is not, mind is not a thing. And this very direct contemplation enables the mind to restore the perception to the proper way of looking at it. That is that mind is aware of mind, versus mind may be aware that there's an arising consciousness, but to the arising consciousness, it is not aware that it is arising in mind. And we have to kind of look at things in this way. It's very subtle, very profound. But if you keep working in this way, you will have this kind of a realization that just mind and the perception of mind is non-dual. It's empty, but it is this emptiness that is an acquired taste. It isn't the emptiness of this. It's the emptiness of the mind knowing without having any aspect of a dualistic notion of knowing. I know this. It is my understanding. That is why they're always saying the true and proper understanding. What is the true and proper understanding? There is no true, and there is no proper, and there is no understanding. But within that, that is the true and proper understanding. We have to transcend our notion of what we believe to be understanding, what we believe to be true or proper. That's why the masters from the past would say, there's nothing sacred nor profane about it. Nothing in this way. But if we try to make it sacred, then we mess it all up. If we let go of the sacred and just go to the profane, we mess it all up. There has to be a balance there. And in that balance, of awareness and mind. It comes to this point. What is the point of all that? Is the realization of Pratika Samappada, causes and conditions never fail. We start and end with that premise because that is Buddha mind. So as you begin to analyze this, and you're doing a good job of that, keep putting these elements into it. Challenge what you're saying, okay? When people write on mind work, I challenge what they say, not because I want to maintain a pecking order, but because I want them to get this exactly right. There's a saying in the Buddha Dharma: if you're off by just an inch, you're off by 10,000 miles. Of course, I don't know what the measurement is, maybe lees or whatever, but you're off by so much. By the time you get there, even if you're off by this much, by the time you keep going, you're so far spread apart from it. So you just keep honing that skill and keep putting the elements that I presented to you into your analysis, into your discussion. And as you begin to do that, little by little, your mind will meld right into mind. I know this is difficult, and some who may be beginners might not quite understand what I'm saying. It's an interesting thing, but it may not be something that at this point they can fathom. But have patience. Have patience. Heck, if I can teach Robert, I can teach anyone. I hope he's listening, or at least he'll listen to it later on. I say that because, he's a great success story with this. And the one thing he had was perseverance, great perseverance to keep going. No matter how many times I would hit him with the broom, he would pick it up and sweep. And this is what we need to do. A long answer to your question, but your question deserved a long answer. Okay, next question. Anyone?
Ruth Marie and Vijay.
Do you have somebody else?
I have a question. Hi, Gilbert. My question is about, I have a lot of vivid dreams and our nightmares. I even had a dream about Master Sheng with a monk. I didn't speak to him, but he saw me and I saw him, and we were in a forest, and we were doing work, and we were all busy. But then I also have dreams of like complete demon hells, and it's just crazy. And I don't watch movies, or I do Dharma mostly, so I don't really understand where this is coming from. And it's very vivid. I wake up, and even in my meditations, these dreams will come back to me. And it's every night. It seems like I'm awake just all night, and I'm not even lucid in these dreams either. So it's not like I can stop. I'm not sure. And it's been a question that I've been wanting to ask somebody for a while. So I don't know if it's even something I should just worry about and just move on. But
for me to answer you in a proper way, I'd have to talk about it for a while, and it could get into things that might be more personal. So offline, you can contact me and we'll take it from there. It's not unusual, people can have things, and I had the weirdest dream last night, and I know it was a dream because it wasn't as vivid as some things, but I dreamed that my son showed up, and he was wearing the Taoist priest outfit, complete with a hat. And I'm going, no, not that. Become a Buddhist priest. But it was something very strange. I just let it go because it was nonsensical. But that's, sometimes it's that way, but yours indicates there's a pattern there, which I'd like to talk to you about. And I don't want to talk about those things here. like that. Okay, next question, anybody? And don't send me your ghost either. I'm not a ghostbuster. People always want to send me ghosts.
Jane?
Yes. Unmute.
Okay, this might be a stupid question. So how do we usually find a teacher? The people always tell me that if you keep practicing, your your master will find you. But I have been practicing and no one find me. So I was wondering how do we, or others, how do they usually find a master that they can follow? Or
What am I, chopped liver?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, what am I, chopped liver?
Oh,
Sorry, it's kind of a Mexican, no, it's not Mexican, is it? Where's Harry at? It's just saying, you're saying you're looking for a master. What do you see? You're looking for somebody, to do that. One of the things I will talk about this is that people are always looking for a master. I know many people that way. They go to this master and that master and this master, and thinking that master is going to be the one that's going to push them over the top. It really doesn't work that way. There was a story that Shifu told, a very, very funny story, and the manner in which he told it. But he said that one of his students came to him and he said, Shifu, I've been studying with Master so-and-so. His practice is incredible. Really, really, it's incredible. And then they said, you should go to practice with him. And Shifu said, that's okay. I just continue to practice here. They go, no, you really need to go to practice with him. Later on, the young man came back. And Shifu said, I thought you were practicing with Master so-and-so. And the boy was just, it's okay, but I think I better practice here. And it was just something that he realized, the profoundness of Shifu's wisdom. And so when you look at that, then there's an introspection that one sees, who is their master? There's a saying that the master, he chooses the students, but also you have to set into motion that which presents you to a master or to I'll call it a well-known advisor, to help you. And so if one comes around some well-known advisor, then, I think, maybe you ought to stick around. Okay.
Thank you.
I can't put it any more subtle than that.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Okay, anyone else? So I picked up a new disciple tonight. All right. Nobody else? And Anyi, are you starting your lectures this week? You have to unmute.
Yes, according to the schedule, it's Friday.
Okay, so Anyi is giving a lecture. You can check, I think, on WeChat. I think we have some information on that for him. And, I think it would be very interesting. I absolutely love Buddhist art, love what it stands for. And it is a slice of what the doctrine of Buddhism was at that time. You'll be very surprised if you looked at the pictures, or excuse me, the sculptures of Milapo, Maitreya Buddha in Indian. They were slender like Anyipan. Now they turn into me. And I can only attribute that to, because in the Indians they had it, but then when it went to China, the food was too good there. And so then you get the milafo that's very, very corpulent. Very interesting, the changes and things. And it's fascinating to me to see little things like that, you know, and how they change, all the ornaments that they have, how they're doing their postures, mudras, everything is amazing. So if you're interested in that stuff, check out Anipan. And if you don't know, get onto WeChat and we'll hook you up from there. Okay.
Esther has a question.
Yes. And then Wendy looks like something. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Gilbert. At the end of these 4 lectures, I find that I'm still not very clear. If someone were to develop the ability to know, you know, like what you have described so far. So for instance, if I have this ability to know someone is going to be killed in an accident or something like that, do I make use of my so-called supernatural power to prevent something from, you know, happening? Like maybe tell the person, don't go out or something like that. What do we do with the power that we have developed? I'm still not very clear about this.
It's a mixed bag, but I do my best to let people know. I'll take one of the most silliest and mundane ones where when I was married, I had told my wife, be careful, don't what you're doing, because you're going to get a ticket today. She goes, no, I don't want a ticket. I said, then be careful. So she called me later on. I was at work and she said, you know, you were right, because I was going and then I thought about it and I slowed down and there was a speed trap there. And had I not thought about that, I would have gotten a ticket. So I said, well, maybe I prevented it. Later on, she called me and then she said, I got a ticket. So, you know, sometimes you can help people, sometimes you can't. The karma's too strong. But I've also told people, be prepared, because something significant is going to happen next week. And they go, what is it? And I just said, just be prepared. And then later the person came to me and said, thank you very much for telling me that, you know, because it was their brother that died. And you can't tell things and I cannot alter that. But she thanked me so much because she said that by being prepared, it took the shock out of it. And sometimes that's the best that you can do. You know, but you try your best, you know, and it can be something mundane, you know. I was telling the secretary, oh, your husband's going to Las Vegas this weekend. And she said, yes. I said, tell him don't gamble. Not this weekend, don't gamble. So on Monday, I asked her and I said, did your husband go and gamble? She says, yes. I said, he lost a lot of money, didn't he? And she goes, oh yeah, he lost a lot of money. So even sometimes when you try to help people, you can't, you know, because the karma is too strong. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can. Once I told a family to watch out because their child was, they were in danger that the child might be abducted. And they will watch the child the whole week, like never let him out of the sight at all. And then they got mad at me. And they said, my child was not stolen. So go figure, you know. So they got mad at me because their child wasn't stolen. And it was a false prophecy. So you never know. But you do your best. If you have a sensation of something, yes, I do try to help people. But I don't go around looking at people and say, you have cancer, you have this, you have this, you have that, and like that, you know, like to everybody. But I recently had someone come into my office, one of my friends. Well, this was not recent. It was about a year ago, maybe a little longer. And when she came into my office to visit me, before she even sat down, she had just was closing the door. I said, after you get out of here, you don't wait. You go to a doctor because you're very, very ill. And you cannot wait. You have to go to the doctor right away. So what I had seen on her was all of this area here was black. what eye is that you're looking at? Well, she went, and sure enough, she had a very stage 4 cancer. And so it was very serious. She's still alive, and I'm giving her treatments, but it's something that you do use it at that point. When you see that like that, you tell the person, go see a doctor. Worst thing could happen is I would be wrong. But sometimes you can sense things like that, and if you do, you have to trust your judgment in terms of that and telling somebody something. So there's so many of those, just sit here and tell you, about my weird life, but that just kind of gives you an indication. Yeah, if you sense something, you tell them.
Thank you.
From Wendy wants to know if we could have an online possibility for the 7-day retreat in July in DDRC.
An online what?
An online offering of the 7-day retreat in July. Also, if it's going to be an in-person retreat, could we also have an online offering?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking that I was scheduled for something, but I lost track now, that I was supposed to be at DDRC in July, I believe, or somewhere around there. But I'm not sure whether that came to fruition or that's being pushed off because of the COVID. So I'll see. I'm not sure. 7 days is a big chunk for me right now, and I'm trying to save those up. And there's times when I'm lecturing like 3 times a week, which requires quite a bit of work. The last time I did, I was very, very tired, but I also fall behind in my work at my work, which I can't literally afford to do. So, but we'll see. We'll try to do it. I'm going to be giving classes in sometime in June in Singapore. So that's going to be a Saturday night class, Sunday morning for them. And then I having a CMC one coming up in May. And then we're working on something for December from the DDM in Jinsong in Taiwan. So, and then somewhere I'm working on something with the Polish group again, but we have the one starting on Wednesday with a European group which has Russians, simultaneous translation in Russian, Italian, and Polish. So that'll be an interesting one. So a lot of places where you can catch me, and do your best in terms of your meditation. But we'll see. Anything else?
So Chia wants to know whether there'll be a recording of your talk in the retreat, and we're working on getting that, Chia. As soon as we get it, we'll post to the YouTube as well as I'm just waiting to get that in order to post it.
And that's actually a pretty good one, because that was just like a greatest hits type of one, that if you were using something on how to practice in meditation and how to practice in your daily life, it shows the interconnection with the use of those elements of meditation and practicing in your daily life. And that was just something that came out of that in terms of weaving what Shifu had written and me interpreting it and putting it there. It came out to be something that was very useful, and inspirational to people. So that's not a bad one at all for people to start with. It's very, very good. And also on my mind work, and this is something maybe Santha, you can put on for my greeting to new students in mind work, that one that says read first.
Okay.
Anybody coming on to that should read that first, because that is filled with a lot of good information to help you. My whole thing is trying to bring you up to the next level and the next level and next level, and just keep at it. And I'm so blessed with so many earnest students that really want to practice in a sincere way. I mean, I'm really, really amazed. You're not just somebody comes in and like a tourist and coming in to take this and take a taste. You really are serious practitioners, and that drives me to bring it every week to try to give you something that's useful in your meditation and your daily practice, and really pointing to mind. Once you start turning the mind's eye inward, it really makes a big difference. I mean, totally changes everything that you believe in this world. There's a statement, and I can't remember the full statement. It was something that I learned actually when I was in Qigong, but it was from Chan Buddhism, and a portion of it was what appears to be real is not real, but what appears not to be real is real. And it's an interesting thing, because just using that begins to break down your notions of what you believe to be real is. And as we look at that and we see this dream that we're in, and it's hard because some people, if you talk to them, they have no idea what you're saying. Others have heard it, maybe have not experienced it, but at least are investigating it and then looking at it. And one day, voila, there it is. There's no inconsistency in that statement. It is some completely clear. And you look at it and say, that was the way it was. What I was seeing from before was through illusory eyes and illusory ego, and mind is just mine. So I truly want to share that with you, and because it leads to what we say is the solving the great matter of birth and death, this great death that you have to experience. Okay. Anything else? Nothing more? So glad to see you all. And I will pick you up next week. We'll see if we continue on or have some other interesting topic to go with. So join your palms, bow. We'll see you next week. Stay.
Thank you.
Stay.
Gilbert.
Safe.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome. You're all
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert. Bye. And have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.